Well, whatever. Anyway, so this one, some of it, I guess, in an initial response to, hey, it's kind of slow, but not necessarily. It's laying down some more groundwork here for all our players and the dangers that are apparent. So a lot about it is like, even if the alien, ship and all that the aliens on the ship hadn't crashed and they have them at the island and all this sort of stuff hadn't happened, they would still have a lot of serious, very dark dangers occurring. Right off the bat, you've got the creepy Peter Pan guy, which that's always a bad sign. We know that from real life. So the breakdown in how the psychology will function for these kids now in these synthetic bodies, and they're not dealing well with it. Primarily the redheaded girl. Yeah, we already saw the signs in the previous episode that she's having problems and probably want to navigate that and make it work. But hey, let's plunge her and the rest of the kids into this horrible scene of destruction and death. And there's monsters in there too. How about that? Yeah, that's great. So of course she's already cracked, and when she gets upset, a child throws a tantrum or what have you. You just ground them and say, all right, no phone, no computer. You go to your room until and think about what you did. And now she's just going to smash the door down, probably snap your neck, because she's super powered. So we get a little bit of that, and she's off her rocker. And can you get her back on the rocker? Probably not. Yeah. So threat number one. Meanwhile, there's the other poor kid who's actually seemingly very nice, doesn't seem to have too many troubles, but he's been compromised by that nasty cyborg. And is turning him into a spy and all this stuff. And the kid doesn't want to do it, but now he's got to, because, what's his face? The cyborg found his family. He sure did. And I guess made a convincing enough story so that the kid's mother does believe that this is her son in the body of this synth body, or synthetic, a hybrid. And so he said, of course, I don't know, maybe she just thinks this guy's nuts, and I don't know, he's threatening me, I just got to go along with this, I don't know, and forcing this kid to follow the instructions of the evil cyborg, who wants his product back to I guess hand over to his bosses. But at this point, I don't know, why should he even care? They told him to just come home, but he says, no, I got nothing else to do. Everyone I know is dead. All right, whatever. So you got that going on. Then, of course, you have the creatures themselves. The brother, they bring him in because they figure, hey, he might be helpful with Wendy. And Wendy's the one that creepy Peter Pan boy likes the best. And, well, she's special. And so they explore this, but they don't know why, as to how she's able to communicate with the xenomorphs. And they say, well, it has to do something similar with her abilities to access, internet, computer, all that stuff. She just does it by touching the screen and whatnot. And they're like, well, that's something. But the others don't appear to have this. And they're testing her ability to hear, I guess, sonic or signals, what have you. It must be some sort of telepathy, where she experienced the pain of the face hugger being dissected and all that. And so how'd that happen? And so they demonstrated, and she's literally learning the language of these creatures. Meanwhile, they turn to one of the other hybrid girls and say, hey, do you hear that? And she's like, no, she's the other character who's very jealous of Wendy because she wants to be the special one. And I don't know, got a daddy complex with, Peter Pan boy. And so that's the deal there. It was, so that just settles it. None of the other hybrids have these abilities. They all have the super strength and everything, but not that. And so they're going to have to go into, how is this possible? You know, it doesn't just happen. They've, as far as we know, none of them involved here has had any experience with any of these creatures. So far, it's Weyland-Yutani. And if they're keeping this in with Prometheus, then yes, some time ago, they've discovered these creatures and all that. So they've been seeking this out all along. But why would Wendy, and unless we find out that her parents worked for Weyland-Yutani or something like that, and there's already some, you know, xenomorph alien DNA in her or whatnot. Of course, going with Prometheus, humanity and the alien xenomorphs are cousins of one another, as they were both created by the engineers, albeit the xenomorph created accidentally, but nevertheless, there you go. So I suppose they could weave that into it, but they're going to need to do that. You can't just have, she's a special girl. Yeah, there's got to be an explanation for it. And especially since you're making such a big deal about it and she just does this. So her brother, they bring him in. He's increasingly disturbed by all of this, and he just wants to protect his sister and everything. But he can't, for all intents and purposes. She is the property of Prodigy. And, well, you're an employee. If you play by the rules, we'll let you visit with your sister. And so he's just like, he's pretty much stuck where he is. So yeah, he's interacting with her and all that. He does, I think, begin to see a possibility of causing trouble for them, as the other hybrids are like, because the boy who's compromised by Cyborg, he's being tasked with finding someone to be a carrier for the alien, and he comes into the group where they're all talking to Joe with Wendy and all that. And he says, well, how come Wendy gets to visit with her brother? Why don't we get to visit with our parents? Yeah, good point. You know, and Joe agrees with him and all that. So I was kind of wondering if Joe thinks, this could disrupt the whole thing, and they're going to have to let the other families know about this. They should know that their children aren't dead. Of course, the question is, are the children still alive? You know, like I said, they're not. These are, you know, really good facsimiles of their, you know, minds in these synthetic bodies. But unless you transplanted their brains, their actual brains, into the synthetic bodies and, you know, and hooked them up and they lived on that way, then yeah, you could argue it's, you know, very much so that it's the same person. There's just the rest of their body's gone and replaced with this one. But this business of your actual soul, you know, which would contain your consciousness, that you're able to, through scientific means, you know, mechanical means, transfer it from a flesh body to a synthetic one. No, because then you got to move the or movie, show, what have you, into the supernatural elements, which they clearly aren't. You know, it's all, you know, superior technology, aliens, and all that. So, and the fact that they do have this question and the guy doesn't quite answer it means they probably really aren't. You know, they're looking for more human, but the pursuit thereof is, are they going to sail this? Because he says this is the whole point of transhumanism, is achieving immortality. And this is the next evolutionary step for humanity. Well, if you actually achieved it, you know, because it's like, well, you're dying, but we're going to transfer you to this new body and you'll live on forever. Okay, cool. So you go to sleep. You know, you don't just go to sleep, you die. And then you're going to wake up in this new body. You know, this copy of your consciousness will wake up in that new body. Essentially, a brand new being came into, you know, who shares all the memories of you and everything. But you yourself, everything goes black and that's it. Yeah. So it wouldn't really be the achievement that they seem to be pursuing. So I guess it's at the point where they're just not really certain that they're successful. The rest of it is the problem of, can they function? Can they do this? And so far, it looks like yes, they can, except for the little redheaded girl. Well, not little anymore, but she's already pushed too far and gone. The three boys, seem to be doing all right. You got the kid who's been compromised by the cyborg. You got the other guy who's just really happy to be there. And then you got the super scientific guy who's changed his name to Isaac after Isaac Newton and all that. They seem to be functioning and doing all right with their situation. But the redheaded girl, well, it's going to be a problem. So finally, the compromised kid, he's going to get Joe into the lab to get him impregnated by the face hugger, and then deliver Joe to the cyborg so that he'll have the product growing inside Joe. So there you go. That's the danger and setup there. But there's plenty of other dangers. They do this experiment with the new alien creature with the eyeball thing. And that, what is it? Where did they get it? What is it? That's a whole other ball of wax, but they do discover there's an intelligence to it in the experiment. I guess I've spoiled a lot, but I'll just let you go see how that unfolds. And so, I don't know. Could you have xenomorph versus other aliens? I don't know. This one isn't all that impressive, other than it can take on it. But I wonder if it could take over a xenomorph, and then you have xenomorph versus xenomorph, that kind of thing. Could be doing that. As for the third entity, they haven't done much with it yet, so we'll see what happens there. But it's some of the elements there, as it expands on the universe and stuff, which is really the only other story to tell after two great alien movies of Alien and Aliens, and then it's like they kind of floundered. This is probably the best effort anyone's made since then. I mean, I can kind of understand what Prometheus was trying to do. I just don't think he'd succeeded. But this one, well, the jury's still out on it. So for the most part, this was, it kind of slowed down a bit after all the action of the crash towers and all that stuff. But nevertheless, intriguing, and I thought was a fairly decent episode. Just once again, as much as I like Jane's Addiction, they throw in another rock song, which really just destroys the mood. I just do not like that. It does not belong in an alien story. If it was someone listening to their own personal music within the confines of the narrative and whatnot, okay, whatever. But not taking too kindly to that. So, I don't think it's done enough here to say this is a complete and utter crap fest and just move on. Nothing to see here. And for me, I'll have to see the whole season and give my own personal final verdict on it. But this particular episode, it's not bad. The others had a lot of mistakes in them. This business of them being thrown into it. Of course, they're going to deal with the consequences with it, but it's just such a stupid decision to do. And this is supposed to be this brilliant genius, and they're all, well, of course, the scientists involved were like, this was not a good idea. And the genius is nuts and all this stuff. So you throw that in there, but even he, I don't think, would do that. It was just really stupid. A lot of missteps here and there and stuff like that. But I don't know. The success of episodes, it may make that forgivable, but if the stupid outweighs the good, it fails. But thought it was a good episode.